Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramf, ushering you into the weekend. We had a whole lot of city council and a whole lot of committee meetings this week as the city looked to update the ordinance, the anti-camping ordinance in the city parks, not to only include the 8 to 8, basically just removal, but just overall just banning overnight camping altogether in public parks. So the narrowing of places where homeless people can go is getting even bigger, while the services that are being provided are at the brink. So, public hearing on the JAG Award for Justice-Related Programs in the City of Missoula kind of kicked off our City Council meeting as we jump right into our first quote with Police Chief Mike Collier talking about these programs that are being funded through this JAG Grant Award.
This money for decades. Tonight I have 4 programs to introduce to you to describe to you how we intend to spend this money. The City of Missoula is the fiscal agent for this grant and provide pass-through money to Missoula County. The total award for this grant is $67,035. Of that, $14,103 passes through to the county, which they spend for a portion of wages on a property clerk. The remaining $52,962 is what I'm here to discuss with you tonight, and it is divided amongst 4 programs for the police department. 3 of the 4 programs were previously approved from this grant last year and authorized through this same process.
All right, and so many of this is very much like related to many of the programs within the department, and much like the Crime Victims Advocacy and Jail Diversion Program, this $67,000 is geared towards those programs. Much like home and CBDG grants, that goes towards various entities within urban block development. As we get further into the meeting, the water rate increase is slated for January, starting rounds of increases for the next 3 years to keep up with the water demands, improving infrastructure and leaky water system. That is Missoula, not to mention the wastewater that has been neglected for quite some time now. And so Logan McInnes, engineer for the water company and regular city council guest for water company and public utility, explains their position on the rate increases.
You know, in general, we believe it's preferable to ask for small or moderate rate increases every year. That way we avoid shocking our customers while continuing to make ongoing investments in our system to improve our reliability and resilience. That wasn't always the case with the wastewater utility, which is why our rates are very low, but also why we feel like we're behind the 8 ball on maintaining some of our wastewater infrastructure. This slide compares the combined utility rates for Missoula with all the other major cities in Montana. The source of this data and several similar slides I'll show you later are from an annual rate survey, conducted by the engineering firm of AE2S. The study assumes the average water and wastewater customer uses 6,000 gallons per month of water, which is pretty close to what our average residential customer uses. As of 2023, this slide shows Missoula had the lowest combined utility rates in Montana. We actually just got the 2024 survey a few hours ago and didn't have time to update this, but it continues to show that we have the lowest rates in Montana.
Okay, so it's unfortunately my own biases kind of came through with this idea that if other cities have a higher rate, then why aren't we doing the same? It feels like such a dumb excuse to do those kind of rate increases and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, it's not as bad. It's just a little bit better than most places. I don't know. It's such a word salad kind of thing that I've never really been personally. They're just going to raise the rates. They want to invest more money into the wastewater, all that kind of stuff. That's basically what this whole deal is. Not to mention, we have a weaker water system as a whole. Presence is, liability to homes with the wastewater infrastructure and increased insurance based on quality control. The details are glossed over, but as codes and standards change, things get more expensive by inaction. So Dale Bickle, Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Missoula, talks consequences of just not raising the rates and keeping things the way they are.
So it's hard to say that just maintaining the compliance, we have to do that. In fact, to the point where we have to actually cut in other operational areas in order to maintain those covenants. So by covenant, we are going to ensure our bond compliance. It's the cutting back on investments that is also a risk.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's the idea that, money invested and maintained, Dale mentioned this could make Missoula discredited from borrowing more money in the lending process and other to some major issues down the line as utilities are leaning on each other, with wastewater being the main through line to the overall rate increases. Other than that, the purchase of the water company has resulted in debt for the water system that was purchased back in 2017, bonded in 2019 for the next 20 years. Quite a multi-million-dollar mortgage for a water company on top of new and basic maintenance in our water infrastructure. All the money is from ratepayers and not taxes, mind you. Otherwise, any extra money would go towards private owners before it became the municipality in which the city owns it right now. So this would be a 3% inflationary increase according to engineer Logan McInnes. As of January 1st, rates will increase with the first rounds, with 3 increases all at the beginning of the top of the year. However, for those of you looking to get utility asset relief, a Human Resource Council helps with heating and water bills through the city of Missoula. You just go to humanresourcecouncil.org, and it will give you a website in which you can scroll down and you can see about housing, residential energy services, and this is what I was talking about in terms of being able to get connected to those services. Is if you are on a fixed income and you have need some financial assistance when it comes to paying your utility bills. So that's some information for you out there that are looking to utilize that. Some new business, they had a conservation easement featuring both city county open space bond money up to $344,000 for a 1,600-acre lot to be held by Five Valley Land Trust. And the city of Missoula has worked with Five Valley Land Trust to kind of steward the lands that the city purchased. And a lot of times land trusts are made to go beyond any kind of municipality or any group, but to be part of, it's very interesting how land trusts kind of work because it supersedes a lot of changes in policies and kind of withstands a lot of that kind of stuff unless there is like a major demand for use of that open space. But anyways, this opened the hearing and they didn't speak too much on this, but I'll read the rundown for the property in question, which includes critical wildlife habitat for many species: white-tailed deer, mule deer, elk, moose, bighorn sheep, black bears, mountain lion, wolves, coyotes, and foxes. According to the Montana Natural Heritage Program, habitat on the property hosts a suite of native species of concern, including west slope cutthroat trout, an owl, evening grosbeck, black-backed woodpecker, various birds, and Clark's nutcracker. The North Hills Evero elk herd passes and grazes through there. The property also provides habitat for 2 endangered species, grizzly bear and Canada lynx. In addition to diverse wildlife, the property boasts several native plant communities that are of the conservation concern. So this is a kind of a big deal for more purchase of just open space land. Some property off Railroad Street is being sold off for $90,000 for a lot that has been used for a parking commission for covering roughly 10 spots behind the bar known as the Depot. The money from this will go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Danny Carlino takes a position against selling this particular land while keeping some of the assets.
This is a small piece of land. It's just a parking lot, but I'd rather see it used for public parking or public benefit, or it could be used for something in the future. And I think, rather than voting against funding the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in each year's budget, and whenever we have resolutions to fund it, I see that we're just trying to sell off city land, which is not a sustainable option. We don't have that much land, and we're going to need this land for all sorts of other things that we're working on.
And for Daniel Carlino's credit, it is the money that is being sold. It will be going to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, but against the sale of city property that could be used for net positive programs like affordable housing and preserving downtown parking. And of course, I'm going to also use this platform to complain about parking that was basically removed. I believe there was about 8 or 10 new old parking spots by the federal courthouse building that was removed just a month ago. And it's really frustrating because it doesn't really make any sense, because all they did was paint a good stretch of the half block yellow, so nobody can really park there anymore. It wasn't really, I didn't really notice it was bothering anyone. I just noticed they decided to just like get rid of like 8 spots of parking in the downtown Missoula area, just like that. So anyways, I'm going to move on. We're going to jump over to basically one of the springboards that will lead us into the Committee of the Whole, in which they slated a 5-hour meeting to talk about and updating the ordinance for the anti-camping. But before that, there was some clarity issues, and one homeless person, Brad Carlson, served the city of Missoula with a lawsuit.
Pleased to see you finally updated the information guide about the ordinance. It still does not contain the required things like where can people sleep, where do we put our trash, where do the needles go, which still makes you out of compliance with 12.60.30 section B. You are the only person to be out of compliance, Ms. Mayor, for the entirety of the existence of the ordinance, and your lawyer doesn't seem to want to work for you. So I'm here tonight to actually serve you, and I'd like to ask permission to come forward and hand you this paperwork.
And so that was Brad Carlson doing that. One of the biggest holes in the anti-camping ordinance is the areas in which the city allows 4 people to stay without the prospect of liability in providing a space that is needed. Many of the things that the city has done and learned over the years, even including the Low Barrier Shelter, the Johnson Street Shelter, was the fact that they couldn't necessarily pay to have many services in place, which is why they heavily relied on a lot of the COVID money. And then as that money started to dry up, they have had to come up with certain interesting ideas of doing it, with the last year being the emergency levy. Not to mention this last summer, they did yet another emergency levy to help continue the Johnson Street Shelter well until its 3rd and last year, which now it's on its 2nd year. So we still have a whole nother year before those kind of Johnson Street Shelter will start to sunset. So as we wrap up the meeting, Mayor Andrea Davis talks about the jail diversion startup. And so I don't know if you've heard about this in the news. I might talk a little bit more about this in my news segment. I have a lot of quotes from City Council, so I'm going to stop right here and throw it over to Mayor Andrea Davis.
My previous organization, Homeward, I helped start this work before I left there, and they were recently invited and granted by the MacArthur Foundation to receive a grant. It's actually through the county, and it's in partnership with Missoula County, and the city of Missoula is a clear partner in this, to work on reducing jail recidivism through helping folks that are returning citizens from the correctional institution secure housing. And this is one of these ongoing and well-documented challenges with folks that are leaving the correction system, that when there's not adequate supports, and there certainly is not in the state of Montana, we lack significant coordinated efforts.
And so there's just a lot of goings on in terms of how the city has done the jail diversion programs in the past. In many ways, people and employers have had some positive experience with a lot of these jail diversion programs, because for the most part, it's very tied in with people and their jobs, and jail diversion programs points people into those jobs, but it also part of their probation means that they have to show up for their jobs. But with the jail diversion program, they're able to initiate this. But a lot of those programs started to lose funding over the years, and I think just as we got into the pandemic and used a lot of that money, a lot of those jail diversion programs were kind of felt missing in a lot of those. Basically, some gaps were found in those kind of things, and this is just yet another series of money that would be going towards this. It's one of the things about this is that it's going to be about $200,000+ initially up front to help fund more data collection. So we're back to the whole data collection kind of thing. And I didn't want to harp too much about this because I wanted to move on to more other projects that are happening here in town, which includes the restoration of the Clark Fork River from Caras Park to the Broadway Island area. So this is essentially the Clark Fork River between McCormick Park and California Street Bridge. Morgan Valiant, Conservation Lands Manager, talks a little bit more about this particular piece of property on the riverside.
It came together over a course of actual multiple decades. As the city developed parklands and acquired properties along the Clark Fork River on West Broadway, Silvers Park, Civic Stadium were some of the first areas that were developed, along with downtown Lyons and Ron's Riverfront Trail. In 2011, the city acquired West Broadway Island, and then in 2020, the city acquired the Flynn Lowney Ditch, which is the irrigation ditch that runs behind Imagination Brewery along the bank of the Clark Fork River.
All right, so one of the things and the takeaway from this particular quote was that since the acquisition of the water company and their assets, Morgan has worked with Trout Unlimited to removal of the Rattlesnake Dam. Some background with that, with little to no cost to the city in that process. And with river rights in property, comprehensive changes are now within Missoula's reach to improve those areas which are being discussed today. And Morgan says they have a lot of issues and opportunities with details on ditches which are used to feed and divert water through irrigation. He also talks about the future of this site in which he is proposing to the city.
This area has been extensively planned. There's multiple different adjacent planning areas that kind of coalesce in this zone. The big ones are Missoula's North Riverfront Parks and Trails Plan, which is the entire north bank of the downtown park system along the Clark Fork. We've got the Envision West Broadway Master Plan, a draft concept for downtown Lyons. We also have master plans for Silver Park and West Broadway Island.
All right, and so as we kind of like skip ahead, he did have a slide in place to kind of show some of the improvements. And so they come up with 3 different kinds of plans that they want to utilize for this particular site to improve, just access to the river, not to mention just be able to improve the water flow in the whole area in general. And so they come up with different conceptions for this plan, which includes restore critical floodplain and riparian habitat, enhance recreation access, increase public safety, improve in-stream river conditions, design and execute a sustainable, holistic project. Other than that, most of the river from the University to Bear Track Bridge was under Morgan's watch as they assessed the erosion and plan to create that current ADA river access at Caris Park. They have 3 concepts for emphasizing the public access to Broadway Island, improvements to parks and trails, and even river currents. So this is going to be up for discussion. They'll talk about it for quite some time. And then I did mention Trout Unlimited, and so we got the representative Rob Roberts, who is also working with Morgan about this project of using regular partners and how many people are invested in making sure the river has plenty of access for ecology and just the watershed as a whole.
We'd have to look at a number of different issues. Not the least Endangered Species Act. We have threatened species, bull trout, who, occupy this section of river. It's considered critical habitat. We are in a FEMA designated floodplain and floodway. So there'd be some significant modeling, both pre and post project to deal with from FEMA. We have Army Corps of Engineers permitting, Section 404. And then also the Stream Bed Preservation Act from the state of Montana, which is sometimes called 124.
All right, and so there's just a lot of stuff and a lot of interested parties. Trout Unlimited is more for profit, and they look into this creating a proposal for space, and so far they want to come up with a master plan for the area with the majority going towards rehabilitation of the river corridor. This is just one of the phases that they are able to jump on this particular opportunity. It's like you get inherit an old house, and you're trying to look for some money to invest in certain sections of that house at a time. And so that's technically what the city is trying to do with the Clark Fork River, especially in that particular area. And they kind of want to create a place where people can actually stop at the West Broadway Island as they're floating in the summer, get out and be able to utilize the public right-of-way in that particular area. All right, so I'm sure you guys have been waiting for this for quite some time now, because I have been talking about this in length, and not to mention the city has talked about this. And for the most part, it feels as though the ordinance was a means to an end to camping in parks, but because of certain issues that they have had with clarity why pass an ordinance that lacked clarity, right? And so they passed an ordinance that lacked clarity, and now they're going to double down and essentially ban people from parks altogether, public parks, city-owned parks, all that kind of stuff, and be like, okay, you can go to more public spaces, but you can't go to city-ran public spaces. So the whole idea is to help mitigate and work with the Parks and Rec Department, who are essentially getting frustrated with all these cleanup efforts that they've been doing so far. And so that's one of the kind of like the reasoning behind that, while also kind of disregarding the essential homeless population that are struggling at this particular time. So Amber Sherrill, City Council, talks reasoning beyond what I just said.
I have also said many times that I would love to have an authorized campsite if we could find a partner to run it that has the expertise and the experience to do so. I know this is currently being discussed and reviewed, so I am hopeful. Since the Supreme Court overturned the Grants Pass decision, Missoula's ordinance, even with the deletion of parks, is the most liberal in our state and likely in our region.
All right, and part of that has to do with the fact that many other communities, even in around the state of Montana, are not hitting this homeless issue on the head as it should be. And so a lot of ways services and service providers are available more so in Missoula than most other places. But at the same time, we just have such an influx of homeless people, we just can't keep up with the service. And that's essentially what the city is trying to say. So Dale Bickle, Chief Administrative Officer, talks programs and challenges with this, basically with everything.
Working on implementation of the ordinance aspects, of course, everything is more complicated than we expected. We are working on storage for personal belongings. We're talking with partners about management and potential sites. We do have a partner, and we are coordinating with the library for the purchase and the placement of day-use lockers at their facility. As Councilor Jones mentioned, we are in the soft rollout of the RV permitting program. We've personnel turnover personnel turnover and hiring in both parks and code compliance has slowed our efforts. And we are starting our enforcement. So the police department has issued 128 written warnings and 28 citations under the ordinance thus far.
All right, so there's definitely a lot going on, and if you were driving around the West Broadway Island, because this kind of all goes back to West Broadway Island, there was a lot of cleanup going on there with a lot of trash and a lot of tents being collected by the bank right across from the Yolks grocery store. The challenge of the city seems to be more about making homeless avoid public areas rather than a solution for homeless, aside from passing it back to the state for help and resources. This is just one of those things I've been talking about for my show for the last 2 years now. Knowing many of the funding mechanisms are sunsetting from the COVID times, which left quite an economic scar in many people's lives, including the city of Missoula. So Ryan Sudsbury, City Attorney, talks a little bit more about the enforcement and how they're going to move forward on this.
Is just a different beast than misdemeanor prosecution. Again, I'm not saying the court is wrong. I'm saying the statute's just not clear on how this procedure is supposed to operate, and based on how the court is implementing it, based on their interpretation, this process just isn't, it doesn't work for a prosecution of sort of a petty offense. So the response here has been to change it back to misdemeanor offense, but cap the penalty at a $50 fine, as you can see in subsection 4 below. Subsection 3 makes changes, again, that are related to this no longer being a municipal infraction proceeding.
All right, and so, yeah, it's basically making a fining mechanism for these kinds of things, and Daniel Carlino, City Council, has been speaking against these measures based on a person's right of self-determination and not being moved from public spaces. And this is what Daniel Carlino has to say.
So if people are survival camping and we're not going to give them a warning, we're just going to go straight to giving them not give them a written warning, just go straight to giving them a misdemeanor criminal offense. How is that not criminalizing homelessness or criminalizing survival camping? Because it seems like the sponsors during the presentation said that you're not criminalizing homelessness, but you're giving out criminal charges for survival camping. So I'm trying to understand the logic there.
All right, and so that was the prevailing question for a lot of people in this case. Moving forward, many of the answers stayed on point with ordinance as a tool to be used in situations of necessity and not directly targeting people who violate the camping, but have the tools to remove them. It kind of removes liability to police to do these kinds of out of sight, out of mind kind of jobs. And I hate to say that, but it's kind of where it seems to be going. As always, these meetings really get into the weeds. This update and amendments to the rule will jump ahead, since I believe that you kind of have an idea of what the city is kind of starting with their presentation and stuff like that. Now we get some of the reactions between some of the local citizens. Who kicks off public comment is Josh Decker, who has this to say.
We're risking a real precarious situation if we move forward with this amendment. Many of the people in this room have spent a lot of time learning and figuring out what the problem actually encompassed and figuring out where we needed to go through this process in the spring. We then came up with an ordinance. We're at the implementation phase, and the ordinance has a review built in January. By your own description, we're talking about a limited number of people camping in parks, but we're gonna risk rehashing this whole situation before the review deadline to appease a few people or to handle a situation with a couple of people in parks. Y'all should stick to your initial ordinance, review it in January, handle problems with it then.
All right, and so that was Josh Decker reflecting on the weird timing for this particular update. Kathy Deshaw made some suggestions to the ordinance, and this is what she had to say.
We're here to explore some options to help people living on our streets. I propose the city use the land purchased at the corner of Russell and Broadway for a temporary pallet housing space. The site already has access to sewer, water, and electricity. Pallet shelter buildings provide some protection from the elements and safety with locking doors. Councilman Bob Campbell brought up a valid concern regarding lack of resources to help people living unhoused. By providing a way for people to secure their belongings, they can pursue employment or other commitments. It's essential. Portable shower trailers were provided to concert goers at Rocking the Rivers. You could do that too on this site. Having resources close together improves the quality of the living area.
All right, and so that was Ms. Deshaw talking a little bit more about that. I'm trying to speed through a lot of these quotes, sorry about that. But good news, bad news, the Clark Fork Hotel was purchased through, let's move on. So David Moore is one for the update and works for No Camp Missoula Coalition, and this is what he had to say about that.
We have gathered over 1,100 signatures from families and individuals that oppose the current ordinance. We don't want camping in our city parks because of the safety for our children, the generational investment that this community has put into its parks. And it's been said before, the city has other land that could be made suitable for this purpose. So please go forth with this amendment and let's get them out of the parks for the safety of the children in this community. Johnson Street, the Rail Link Park, I've heard so many people that no longer take their children there. And those are really fine little parks.
All right, and so that was David Moore on that. There's quite a few back and forth for a little bit, but many people who showed up for the community meeting spoke against this updated ordinance, and Parks and Rec have been managing many cleanup campaigns in Missoula parks and trails, and the city has been affected by the costs associated with the cleanup and maintenance that have exceeded many departments and local patients. Heather Hayes, homeless person, spoke to council about essentially how confusing and so this is Heather Hayes talking about this.
I was in a torture traffic ring for a while, so shelter situations are not okay for me. I can't be that close to that many people. It's a trauma thing for me. But for the people that are out there, is anybody in here aware of the situation that happened with a unhoused man that was attacked by someone because he was unhoused and just putting his tent up and going to bed in a city park like you guys told them to? And he was completely in compliance. He even had a tape measure to measure out how far from everything he was supposed to be. And he was hit with a stick from the outside of his tent. He got 3 staples in his head. So they are attacking us, whoever this is. And it's not us doing it to us. Okay, this was somebody that was housed. Somebody with a grizz jacket on running towards the college is what I got from my friends.
All right. And so, yeah, I mean, those are just many of the experience that many of these folks have to live with. And Ty Howell, homeless person, tells his story from his experiences of living in the parks.
You should. This is me. This is what I look like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've lived at the Johnson Street Shelter. It's violent and dirty. I got COVID there. I've lived at the Poverello. It's at capacity. I'm very grateful for all the services that I receive. I've been in medical respite at the Poverello for a period of months. That was extraordinary. It allowed me to have my left foot bolted back together instead of amputated. My enormous gratitude to the 7 private residences that are able to see me from their front porch in Kiwanis Park. At no point in time have those people ever been distraught. To the people who put up signs that say you're concerned that I will hurt your children or your property, that horrifies me, and I have not. And a minimum of 5,000 people of all walks of life, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, have observed me in Kiwanis Park, and not one person has had an issue. Short note, if you're going to carry a weapon, because you might need to kill someone who's a member of the public in public, you should be wearing a camera. That's not unnecessary. That's not too expensive. That's not an indicto cam. As the police and the ACLU will tell you jointly, it's a great idea.
All right, and so one of the things that he mentioned that was the fact that the security that are going to be used to monitor the parks and enforce these is the God, what was it called? Black Knight Security is going to be handling a lot of these situations. And, you know, Ty has lived in Missoula since 2000 and has only been homeless since June. Many people spoke against this, but stuck in the mindset that the ordinance is overall bad and must be removed for better solutions rather than adding further hardships to the homeless. And they did some numbers with Erin Pehan through the community planning and housing. She spoke about 553 people are currently being served via the homeless coordinated entry system. That's basically what they call it, as the city call. But 111 more people are either waiting or currently are not being served in an official capacity. Tanner Carlino lambasts the ordinance, and this is what he had to say.
And I just think this is a huge step in the wrong direction. You know, when we're all living in a society where our basic needs for housing are built on this system where that's built on a pursuit of profit and under capitalism, and we're always going to have people that aren't going to be able to have housing. And we as a society, we as a city council have all of our collective resources and tax money. So what are we going to do with our collective tax money? And it appears that you all want to spend millions of dollars a year to criminalize people that have nowhere to go and to move them in circles when we could be using that money towards the Housing Solutions Fund and helping get people out of homelessness. We could be using that money to create more shelters, to provide, emergency response teams that actually help people rather than just giving them fines and making them go through the court system.
All right. And so, yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that I remember back in the 2010s in which people would just be regularly handed fines for being homeless just in general. And I think a lot of those things were deemed more unconstitutional in the city of Missoula as time went on into the mid 2010s. And, and it's interesting just because, Gwen Jones, city council, has been speaking very much in favor of these kinds of ordinances, and she responds to Carlino's comments about this.
Because we are all living in this community. This is not all about one sector of society. It's about how do we all live in this valley, and how do we do our best by a vulnerable population. But that is not the one determining factor. There's a lot of analysis that goes into this. So I just want to refresh everyone's recollection that 4 full pages of all sorts of different financing and programs and structures and housing that has been built. It is not for lack of trying. I think the fact that we have worked so hard the last few years, especially after everything blew up after the pandemic, goes to the fact that our home-based consultants have told us that for a city our size, we actually have less homeless and unhoused folks than other comparable cities our size across America. So,
all right, and so that was Gwen Jones talking about that. And that essentially, the thought process was to create enforcement policies and like any solutions to homeless issues, as this is a simple reinforcement of the ordinance and expansion of limiting areas of overnight camping. This would create a $50 fine for people who violate the camping in public spaces. It was a public park spaces, excuse me. It was a soft solution, followed a more hardline view from the city as they move into this phase of handling folks with more accountability from the homeless. So up next, we have some original programming and stuff we want to highlight here from Missoula, and some fun videos for you guys to enjoy. And when I come back, we'll have some movies to talk about.
Sponsored by the shadow government. Legalize nuclear bombs.
Dad Joke Wizard.
Robots! Fighting the evil Skellymen.
You never steal our Bubble Hill, Skellymen. I will take over the Bubble Hills. Go Robots!
NCAT Animation Drop-In Workshops every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. located in the Missoula Public Library, 455 East Main Street.
I'll get you next time, Robots! Next time!
Go Robots! Hey guys, welcome back. Let's talk about some movies that are coming out this weekend. We're kicking things off with The Last Dance, not to be confused with the documentary of the same name. To reflect the writers, one late night session hanging and watching Michael Jordan documentary steals the title and brings an end to the symbiotic relationship with a famous comic book character with a big tongue and even bigger tongue energy in this superhero on the run from both humans and aliens alike, setting up a potential planet Venom, which most comic book fandom, if, you know, there is a will, there is a Venom symbiote attached to it. Enjoy a series of gags that the first movie kind of leaned into, as the actor really thought this movie would not have legs, and continued this downward quality and upward profit. So enjoy a kind of comic book movie about a space alien that kind of becomes the armor of a guy, and he uses the armor to make things and fight the bad guys, but it's kind of unclear who the actual bad guy is in this movie. So anyways, let's move on. Conclave, we have yet another thriller, this time behind the scenes of the Pope selection process, where bishops from around the world use democracy and mean girl tactics to get the most powerful position in human history. I liked it better when they did the two popes. It was pretty delightful. It made the conclave look like it was a cafeteria and people voted for the Pope. Anyways, this Hollywood crap out of the film with a bunch of bros hanging out and decided to vote for the Pope, as many will try anything to become Pope, maybe even kill the first Pope to do it, which is implied in the trailer, which means it's probably the case. Otherwise, it would not be that interesting. Finally, we got this movie, which is basically just Beauty and the Beast. This movie is a little bit more vein of monster on the outside, poet on the inside. Beauty and Beast again. This time it's her monster in the closet that teaches her to become a better actor and get the part. That's the weird thing about the synopsis, is she's basically just like a wannabe actor looking for her break, and a monster basically teaches her Shakespeare and stuff. So it's very much like a mixture of Beauty and the Beast, but Phantom of the Opera, but also no singing. So I assume they use the cover of Halloween to go out on the town, but some friends find out, and she has to decide to live out and be proud or put that monster back in the closet. It's also kind of like a Drop Dead Fred in many ways, if you really think about it. If you've ever seen those movies, yeah, trauma feel. Anyways, up next we have a new Dubbin Stuff from the 1975 movie, Deep Red.
Come on, honey. I have to get to the Four Tenors.
Oh, wait a minute. This is the car we rented. Isn't it great?
Well, no, actually. All right, whatever. This is going to do just fine. We just have to get there in time.
Close the door already.
I'm trying, but it won't stay. What? Ugh.
Better lay off those biscottis, I tell you what.
No.
Oh, man, I just love vacations, just going all over the place and doing whatever needs to be done. I wonder where we're going to eat for breakfast or lunch or dinner. I'm just so excited about trying some new things, aren't you?
Oh, why'd you do that?
As your wife and manager, I can't just have you listen to music.
I work in music. How can you turn
I cannot have you ingesting bad foods, including bad music. It's not possible, and you shouldn't be doing that. You should not be distracting yourself with other people's bad music and everything.
I don't really see the difference.
And besides, let's talk.
Fine. This car's a piece of crap, by the way. Now imagine, if you will, a little taco man. How does he feel on Taco Tuesday? Woo! Yeah! Woo! I'm not done yet. I have a lot more to say. The end. Now you can clap. Well, I see we've got our work cut out for us, don't you think? Perhaps many more people will fill those seats. I don't know about it, Jerry. I just don't think that anyone's really going to show up to our... Well, to our what? What aren't they going to show up for? Well, the fact that there's 4 tenors and there's only 3 of us.
I think you're overthinking this. Perhaps maybe we should just take a break. You've been working hard. And besides, we're all sold out. No one can return the tickets anyways. All sales are final.
But what not of a reputation?
Reputation, schmeshutation. This is a flyover town.
If we are to sing, we must sing together.
Yes, we would love to have a unisex quartet, but unfortunately, I can't think of a reason, but it's a no.
All right, welcome back. Let's talk about some news that are happening in and around the state of Montana and beyond. It's time for your basic news update. Some news out of the fire season. The Montana Free Press reported on the burn season and, should I say, lack thereof. Because of the drier, windier weather days, according to the InCeneweb, a disaster management database managed by the Forest Service, attempts to control slop over in areas where the prescribed fire escape containment lines were unsuccessful. Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks planned a burn in the Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation and Blackfoot Challenge, an Ovando-based community conservation group, but the fire quickly escalated. They were only supposed to cover about 65 acres, and now it spans over 200 acres in the border between Powell and Lewis and Clark counties. After 2 early September rainstorms, land management agencies plan to prescribe fires around the state throughout the early fall. According to Anna Bateson, a public affairs specialist with Logo National Forest, a hot, dry autumn has led to cancelizations and postponements of the prescribed burn seasons. And so far, what the Forest Service does is what's called broadcast burns, as the article covers, refers to the practice of burning reviewed areas that have a section aimed at reducing fuel and cutting off sections of the forest to mitigate spread of the forest fires at the particular time, if need be. So Missoula released plans to add upwards of 27,000 new homes by 2045 to both curb growth and current deficit in housing, which the study shows about 2,700 deficit in homes in the city of Missoula. Our Missoula 2045 Land Use and Planning spoke Friday with groups of people as the city unveils plans to grow city while addressing many challenges our community is going through. The plan will guide growth and development in the city over the next 20 years using outlined policies to inform zoning and development decisions. Overall, the amount of new residents are projected at 37,000 new people within the next 20 years. Among the study that the city's key values of housing, equity, climate, and connectivity, and integrates public. So as of 2022, about 64% of Missoula residents' land allows for single-family homes or duplex affordable, about 30% of the population, according to the city's equity and land use report. This plan is to rebuke these and find a way to maximize these study areas, which encompasses the city, county, covering about 40,000 acres. One of the bigger moves that the city has taken recent in rezonings, which was the essentially 5,500 square feet per dwelling unit to the minimum of 3,500 per dwelling unit for a single dwelling family home, smaller with mixed buildings of various sizes that you've probably seen in more suburban neighborhoods. To my neighborhood, Franklin to the Fort, getting second story housing where most homes are single level. So that's one of the things that the planning board will hold public hearing on these draft plans on November 19th. The City Council will consider it for adoption in December. Work on the Unified Development Code updates would continue into the spring. Speaking of housing, it looks like Missoula got awarded the Just Home Project award led by MacArthur Foundation and the Urban Institute, which helps local partners design new intervention strategies in collaboration with local stakeholders. So the Missoula Economic Partnership found that nearly half of the homeless population reported adversarial interactions with law enforcement while homeless, while another 30% said they have been in jail while homeless. Through Missoula and nonprofit Homeward, like they were mentioned in my City Council report, $246,000 in funding is to provide assistance to those who are in and out of the judicial system to stay off the street while not going back to prison. Unfortunately, this is yet another one of those studies that have to go into receiving more money to address this problem, but this is another one of those first steps in data collection to move forward on these policies. So very much like a new approach to jail diversion, because in many public courts, these kinds of things are harder to sell if an individual getting out of jail cannot secure a job to keep them out of jail or off the street. I've been around the block, and simply put, many avenues that the city, county have thrown federal dollars at an issue while combating higher prices and cost of living, and most Missoulians falling under the average medium income for the city of Missoula. So there's a lot of things that are kind of going against the people who are actually been in Missoula versus the people who can afford to live in Missoula. So there's definitely a lot of animosity, even in the state of Montana, and even a more liberal place like Missoula becoming a little bit more towards the people who are immigrating here, whether they are conservative or not, or liberal or not. The whole idea is that there's more people coming to Missoula, and we're kind of in a boom kind of city type deal, but without the kind of infrastructure to kind of keep up with the demand for housing. And so we're kind of living in a weird kind of boom developers paradise, but the developers themselves are also being put to the test for all these developments moving forward. So there's just definitely a lot of stuff going on, and I'm just going to kind of leave you with that. There's not much other news I kind of want to talk about as we're getting closer and closer to the election. I am definitely not feeling a lot of the election stuff, because it's like every other day I'm getting so many just mailers of just people being like, vote for this person, oh, this person's evil, this person's thing. But anyways, honestly, I'm glad today is trash day, because I have a lot of the political ad trash that I have to throw out. All right, moving on. Let's talk about some events that are happening within the city of Missoula. This is where I usually go to MissoulaEvents.net to kind of highlight some of the things that are happening in the downtown Missoula area and beyond. Kicking things off, as always, this is a daily event at Bonner Park. This is Stroller Strides with Mommy and Me workout classes. Butterfly House and Insectarium is open at 10 a.m. Family Fun Time at 10, featuring Misno Gymnastics, Get Air, YMCA, a lot of different indoor fun for a lot of people as we're starting to get a little bit colder outside. Missoula Food Bank meal distribution starts at 10 a.m., goes until about 1 p.m. on Fridays. Tuesdays and Thursdays, they have longer hours from a more traditional 10 to about 6 p.m., and these are a great way for people of different economic backgrounds to get access to food. Tiny Tales is an ongoing thing that happens every Friday here at the library for kids who want to learn to read, but also have some fun activities along the way around 10:30 every Friday. Lunch at the Missoula Senior Center. It's a great way for people who are 55 and older to get access to nutritious food, but also have a nice social gathering place at the senior center and the best dance floor in Missoula, I tell you. And then also there's a lunch service at the Paul Varela Center. They do breakfast, lunch, and dinner daily and on the weekends as well. In mornings, 7 o'clock, lunch, 11:30, and I believe that they have their dinner service around 5:30 p.m. every day. As always, every Friday, you got yarns and watercolor here at the Missoula Public Library on the 4th floor. Do some arts and crafts, have some fun stuff. This has been an ongoing thing for at the Missoula Public Library for decades. All Abilities Arts Club at base. This is a relatively new program to help people with disabilities have access to art supplies and more to be able to take part. Lego Club every Friday at 2:30 p.m. at the Missoula Public Library, and Happy Hour at the Missoula Carousel. So for the organization of Carousel of Missoula, every Friday, October through February, 3:30 to 5:30 for Happy Hour at the Carousel. Buy one get one free ride deal, and you can visit the remarkable handcrafted ponies and take a spin on the second fastest carousel in the country. Yeehaw! All right. MNHC Fall Banquet and Auction. The Montana Natural Resources Center is doing an auction and fun-filled, nature-filled evening for the Fall Banquet and Auction on October 25th at the University Center Ballroom. Westside Theater is also doing an evening of the Macabre Theater, an eclectic lineup of stories with subtle eerie in the fully demented, from dark deserted highways to alternative realities to the end of the world. These playwrights have been bravely ventured to the dark side and create unique and memorable evening for original theater. And this is going to be at Westside Theater tonight at 6 p.m. And as always, there's a lot of haunted houses. This weekend there's the haunted house at the Porter Inn, and this is at 11620 Porter Inn in Missoula, just towards Frenchtown. Bob Wire, Rock at Imagination Brewing Company, starting at 7 p.m. You got some bluegrass at 7 p.m. at Sundog North at the Old Post. Karaoke at the Jack Saloon at 7 p.m. Little Shop of Horrors is playing this weekend. So, get your Seymour and your Audrey 2s on. Into the Woods is going to be at the UN Theater and Dance Montana Theater at 7:30 p.m. and this weekend as well. Kate's Birthday and Fundraiser at the ZAC, featuring Calamity Cowboy and Pheromones, Zootown Arts Community Center. Son of Brad is going to be doing some rock and jazz combinations at the Cranky Sam Public House. Grotesque Burlesque Carnival is going to be at the Dark Horse, featuring some rock music at 8 p.m. The Rocky Horror live show is going to happen at the Wilma at 8 p.m. They also have a midnight showing too. They usually do that from what I've noticed, it's like 11:45. Then we got a Halloween bash at the Backwards Beats and Party Robins playing some DJ music at Monks tonight at 9 p.m. Kyle Curtis and the Promised Land is going to be at Union Club tonight at 9. And then Sunrise Saloon is going to be hosting the Lost Case Trio, and they're going to have a Halloween party. So all these kind of Halloween fun things are happening on your Friday nights, with a lot of things happening on Saturday, as well as this might be the last Saturday market in the downtown area, as it's going to slowly start transitioning to the more winter markets at the Orchard Homes and also the Southgate Mall. So now this weekend, starting at 9 a.m., is the Gilkey Executive Education Building is doing a UM Dual Enrollment Information Day. High school is the perfect time to start college. You can take some AP classes and do part of a dual enrollment and get your college credits going as soon as possible. Starting at 9 a.m. at the Gilkey Executive Education Building. Brews and Booze, 5K. Lulu Peak Brewing Company is hosting a 5K at their brewery, starting at 10 a.m. Scavenger Hunt at Homestead Glamping Cabins at 10 a.m. They do this pretty weekly. A makerspace walk-in hours to the Missoula Public Library, 3D printers, great stuff. They also have a sewing club that they do here as well to teach people and show people how to patch up their clothing. Memorial making workshop at Missoula Senior Center. Small shrine makeup making workshop in conjunction with the Missoula's annual Festival of the Dead. Come and create. Materials provided. And you can bring personal mementos or decor to add to it. Story time at the Missoula Public Library every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Moon Randolph Homestead, they're doing the open hours as they start wrapping up their tour season, and you can check that out. Also, the Missoula Art Museum has their tours around 11 a.m. every Saturday at the Missoula Art Museum. Cores of Discovery, Travelers West State Park. You can bring your family and friends to the 5th annual Spooky event on Saturday from noon to 3 p.m. It is open to all ages. It's $5 entries per family or a non-perishable food donation to help local food bank. Activities include pumpkin bowling post-mortem petting zoo, hot apple cider, and many more surprises. They look forward to seeing you there. MCAT Saturday drop-ins, we do it every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. Great way for kids to do some stop animation and some fun stuff along the way. West African dance class is going to be at the Barn Movement Studio at 4 p.m. on Saturday. Learn some West African dance. They got our Debari group for an hour of drum circles and more. MC Next Gen Square Dance is going to be doing some bluegrass on the UC second floor in the Commons at the University Center at 6:30 p.m. on Saturday. Blues Animation Brewing Company at Papa Morpho, playing blues at 7 p.m. at Imagination. 7:30 at Free Cycles, Drum Brothers is going to be there. Goth Ball is going to be at the Zootown Arts Community Center. Why not do a goth ball? It's dressed all in black and listen to some sad and also some really hard rock music. Solid State Karaoke at the Westside Lanes. Halloween party at 9 p.m. at Monk's. Halloween at the Bodega. So Bodega never really promotes anything ever on Missoula events, but they're promoting their Halloween at the Bodega at 9 p.m. Latin Spooky Nights, Eagles Lounge, The Spills, Union Club Band, Clint Rimnan Band Costume Party is going to be at the Sunrise Saloon at 9:30 p.m. Chris Moon at the Badlander at 10 p.m. Sponge is going to be featured in electronic music at Top Hat to wrap up your Saturday night. And so there's a lot of stuff happening in and around. They have a coffee and clay day at the Thorough Ceramics starting at 9:30 a.m. on Sunday. This is a 2-hour class. You can try your hand at the wheel and do your own ghost. Bat House Workshop, Home Resource Community Room. This Bat House Workshop is the final installment in the Mud Natural Habitat Steward Workshop series, and it's going to be a good one. Plus, attending will give you the qualifications you need to finally say, I'm Batman for real. Skeleton Skedaddle, Silver Park. There's another 5K and Kids Pumpkin Run starting at 10:30 a.m. on Sunday. Halloween skate event at the Mobosh Skate Park. So this is the Missoula Skate Park right next to McCormick Park at 12 noon on Sunday. Dress up and skate. Halloween all under one roof at the Missoula Public Library from noon to 3 p.m. on Sunday. MCAT will be in attendance doing some pictures in their studio. As you can see, I'm in our studio and more. Pinball tournament at Odd Pitch Brewing at 4 p.m. on Sunday. You got Jazz Night at Draftworks featuring Naomi Moon Siegel at 6 p.m. Western Union, Montana favorite Countrypolitan Western Swing Band is going to be at the ZAC doing some swing dancing with some bands, with a live band, Very funny open mic comedy at the VFW every Sunday at 8 p.m., followed by every weekend karaoke at the Sunrise Saloon at 8:30 p.m. to wrap up your weekend of fun and hanging out and doing all that kind of stuff. And honestly, I want to thank you guys for joining me this morning and for Wake Up Missoula. I'm Scott Ramp. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.